Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Survivor 50 Wishlist Podcast, an off-season series where we're trying to figure out who could and should be coming back for the upcoming returnee season of Survivor 50. And we have done it. 697 Survivor contestants have been talked about over the course of 46 podcasts. And today, we are here to reveal the final ballot, go through one final round of wild cards, and look ahead to what comes next. Of course, my name is Mike Bloom, and I'm joined by someone who is the reason I'm here today for multiple reasons. He's the one who came up with this truly incredible, complicated idea, and a member of the 50 Wishlist Ballot, which we'll be getting into over the course of this podcast, the one, the only, Rob Cesternino.
You give me too much credit, Mike. You're the reason why we're here. You're the reason for the Survivor 50 wish list, and you're the one who did all the work. I just lied here the whole time.
Yeah, well, that happens sometimes, though. You lied in wait like the Alec Gabler.
Lied in waiting. Yes. And now here we are as we are about to send people to the polls.
Yes, exactly. We'll see. Maybe the polls will be open by the end of this. For what it's worth, we're going to be going through some names today. We always do. We're going to be going
what's our mission today, Mike?
Our mission today is that we are going to be revealing the full ballot by the end of this. That is including going through all of the names that have been put on so far and doing one final round of wild cards since the halftime show that we did. So we will leave this podcast with one final set in stone ballot for possible Survivor 50 contestants to vote upon for the first round of voting. And yes, I did say first round of voting. More on that a little bit later.
Okay. All right. Well, Mike, you've been very busy talking with all of the great podcasters and alumni here through 46 editions of the Survivor Wish List.
Yeah, and I really have to give major thanks amongst my huge list, not only for this wish list, but amongst the kudos to give to everyone who did come on between podcasters and alumni. I mean, look, as we're about to get into, it was far from an easy job to do, and it certainly did not come without people voicing their opinions as to who they wanted to see on. But I greatly appreciate those who either took the time to rewatch their season, do their research, or just come on and give their opinions about which people they would want to see back on Survivor. It was such a fun time. And also a massive thank you to everyone who checked it out as well. Whether you were in here every day at 6 or 10 a.m. seeing everything that happened, or you only checked out some of them, or you just followed along through recaps on Reddit or Twitter or what have you. Either way, it's the off season. I love the engagement that happens in our Survivor community regardless. And we had a lot of engagement around this, which I really hope does carry forward into the actual voting itself.
People are very excited, and this is an opportunity for people. People have had so many personal experiences with the show Survivor, and they have all of their favorites. And many people relish the opportunity to see their favorites come out here and have that opportunity again. And so there's a lot of just wish casting that's going on, and that's been a great word for all of this to describe this just entire experience for and I could say for the fans, but I think a lot of the alumni too.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it, shall we, Rob? Let us not tarry any further before we tally. Let us not tarry, and we'll get into not deets, and we'll get into the Survivor 50 wish list ballot. And as always, I have a visual on this series. So we're going to start going season by season. Again, for the first 22 seasons, Rob, you and I got together halfway through to do a little bit of a recap and add some wild cards to the ballot, which we'll also be doing today. The wild cards are indicated with an asterisk. So for the first 22 seasons, we're just going to go through who has already been added, and then the game will change a bit as we get to season 23.
We're not going to stop down too much on the first 22 seasons because we already did that.
Yeah, it's just a reminder for everybody, especially as we are looking ahead to opening up the polls. First off, from, of course, the enigmatic titan of a first season that is Survivor Borneo, we have 5 Pagongs. Rob, we have Jervis Peterson, Jenna Lewis, Greg Buis, Gretchen Cordy, and added by wildcard, the one, the only Ramona.
Wow, no Tagi.
No Tagi. The Tagis had their moment, you know? Give the Pagongs a second, third chance, if you will. Moving on to the Australian Outback, a season full of returnees, and we added 4 to the wish list in the form of our top 2 in Tina and Colby. Of course, we're on the stars of the season in Jerry Manthe, and a former second chance candidate herself in Kimmy Kappenberg.
Okay.
Survivor Africa. We have our fallen angel in Lex, perennial RHAP standout in Teresa T. Bird Cooper. We have Kelly Goldsmith, Clarence Black, our merge boot, and the person that went right before him in wildcard, Lindsay Richter.
Some good options here.
Survivor Marquesas. We have our top 2 in Vesepia and wildcard, Nalia Dennis. We have our fallen angel in Kathy Vavrick O'Brien. We have, of course, the one, the only Sean Rector, his ops in John Carroll, and our pre-merge sweetheart in Gina Cruz.
And if you're just joining us, Boston Rob will be later on.
Boston Rob will be later on, don't worry. I did maybe retrofit some other people, but look, I had to fill out the Redemption Island side of the ballot, so I thought Boston Rob might show his beautiful face there instead. Survivor Thailand, we have 4th place finisher Helen Glover, of course, the only returnee from this season in Xi'an. We have our final boot before Xi'an in the form of Rob with 2 Bs, and of course, pre-merge standout Gandia.
Yes. Bring back Gandia in the chat, working hard. After getting snubbed for Winners at War, she needs to come. Well, I don't think the Gandia got snubbed for Winners at War.
Vesepia.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
The winner in our hearts, truly.
Yes, bring back Gandia and Xi'an. Wow.
All right, moving on to a season that is near and dear to your heart, Rob, the Amazon. Of course, we have our winner, Jenna Maraska. Look at that cutie patootie by the name of Rob Cesternino. We have added via wild card Heidi and Christy, and we have your old buddy Dina.
Yeah. Not to stop down too much on this, I'm not campaigning to go on Survivor 50, but to me, Survivor 50 is like the Hunger Games. It's like if they pull my number, it's like I have to go, but I'm not sitting here with my fingers crossed.
Well, playing hard to get will get you everywhere, Rob. I see the tactic you're trying to pull off here.
Listen, my work is here.
All right. Well, your work might not be done, according to the fans. We shall see. Moving on to one of the most popular Survivor seasons of all time, Pearl Island's got a big group out of this. 5 Drakes, 1 Morgan. We have, of course, legend of Survivor, Sandra Diaz-Twine. Kendrick doesn't. We have, of course, Johnny Fairplay. We have added via wildcard Burton and Krista. We have huge fan favorite in Rupert Boneham, and also added via wildcard second chancer himself, Andrew Savage.
Okay.
Moving on, because again, we skip all returnee seasons. Survivor Vanuatu. We have our top 2 in Chris Doherty, Twyla Tanner. We have 2 of our returnees from this season in Eliza Orleans and Amy Cusack, and added via wildcard Rory.
Okay.
We finish out our top 10 seasons of Survivor, first 10, I should say, with Survivor Palau, our top 2. Tom Westman added via wild card, and the runner-up of that season, Katie Collins. Huge fan favorite from that season, turned 3-time player, Stephanie LaGrossa. Our quote-unquote merge boot in Kobe, and someone that will return with Stephanie the very next season, Bobby John Drinkard.
Okay. Next
up, going to Guatemala. We have a real Rafe's choice of candidates here in the form of our 3rd place finisher, Rafe Judkins, talking with T-Bird standout, Cindy Hall, added via wildcard. Judd Mann, he's on the ballot as well. Whether it's Gary Hogaboom or Hawkins, he is in as a wildcard. And 2 pre-merge favorites in the form of Brian Corridan and Amy O'Hara.
If you don't vote me in, I will beat you down.
Next up, Survivor Panama, Exile Island. We have 2 through 6, basically. It is our runner-up, Danielle DiLorenzo, our big hero from Lamina, the aforementioned Terry Dietz, legend of the game of Survivor and Big Brother in Surrey Fields, snubbed for Survivor Second Chances, Shane Powers. And
snubbed many times.
Yeah, and someone that threatened to snuff in her own shitty apartment, Courtney Merritt.
Mm-hmm.
Survivor Cook Islands. This is a chunky one. It's a chunky cast because we have 4 out-and-out multiple returnees, legends of the game,
Right.
and 4 pre-mergers added via wildcard. We have Ozzy Luce, of course, the winner of Micronesia, Parvati Shallow, 3-time players Jonathan Penner and Candice Woodcock Cody, and then merge/pre-merge darlings Nate Gonzalez, Jenny Guzambai, Cowboy, the mastermind of Operation Voodoo, Plan Voodoo, and Billy Garcia.
Yeah, this is a planned voodoo, this whole thing.
It truly is. It truly is by the end of this. Survivor Fiji. You know, if you've been following Geo Worthy, you've seen their names being thrown about. The winner of this season, Earl Cole, one of our runners-up, tied for second place in the first ever unanimous jury vote, Dreams Heard. Added via wildcard, first person to be idled out of the game in Stacy. We have someone that arguably got screwed in one of the most BS twisted Survivor history in Michelle Yee, and someone that we felt maybe deserved a bit of a second chance given his pre-merge showing, Anthony!
Great. Love to see it.
Moving on to Survivor China. Like Australia, we're bringing back mostly returnees, but someone that people have greatly wanted to see back on the show in our winner, Todd Herzog. Alongside him, his number 1 ally turned 2-time runner-up, Amanda Kimmel. We have a second chancer in the form of PG, and we have 2-time fan favorite, James Clement.
Okay.
Survivor Micronesia. Remember, we only did the fan side of the cast here, and Eric Reichenbach did choose to drop out, so we are left still with a mighty trio in the form of Natalie Bolton, Prince Jason Siska, and pre-merge Rob G. Otis, Tracy Hughes Wolf.
Okay.
Next up, we're going Gabon. After the, from Rob's perspective, controversial snubbing, removal of Susie Smith here.
Yeah.
We have 4th place finisher added via wild card Maddie Whitmore. We have the dynamic duo of Kenny and Crystal, as well as the dynamic duo of Charlie and Marcus, and pre-merge villain Ace.
So I just want to add that we have a Gabon talking with T-Bird coming up later on this week. So little bit of a tease here.
Rob, listen, I don't want to press you too much.
Yeah.
Any second thoughts about the Susie snub?
Listen, what are we even doing? That what is anybody? Is there some plurality of people that is clamoring for Susie Smith to come back? That is gonna vote her in.
There. I've seen a healthy amount of people say it. Now the whole thing is that
put Susie on. Go for it. Go crazy.
Peer pressure at its finest, people.
I don't care.
There we go. Who is to say? Rob is like, have Susie replace me.
Can I get an age check on Susie Smith? What is she, 65 years old?
I think she's 60.
I'm sure she's raring to go. I'm sure the Survivor producers, when they hear this, are going to jump for joy. Oh, Susie Smith is back on the ballot? Bet.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, let's move on from that.
I'm sure she's a lovely person. That I don't think she wants to come back. I don't think they want her. But go for it. Go crazy.
I mean, listen, we'll get to the wild cards. We say bet in response to that.
63-year-old Susie Smith. A year from now, 64-year-old Susie Smith. I'm sure they are absolutely gonna be ecstatic to hear she's back on the ballot.
Listen, we ended this. We're going to end this firmly in French vanilla fantasy territory. So Rob is just sweetening the deal there. Let's move on to Survivor Token Chains. We have added via wildcard. That's fan favorite Game Changer, Susie Smith. Thank you very much. We have added via wildcard our winner and 3-time player, JT Thomas. We have 3rd place finisher, Aaron Lobdell. Of course, 2 of the biggest characters from this season who will come back to make it to the final Tribal Council in Coach and Tyson. And Tyson's number 1 ops in the form of Sierra Reed, voted in by wildcard. All right, next up, Survivor Samoa. We have our top 2 and arguably one of the most controversial top 2 finishes in Survivor history in our winner, Natalie White, Enigmatic, and of course, our runner-up in Russell Hantz. We have Jason. We have another returning from the season in Laura Moret. our merge boot in Eric Cardona, and the person that went right before him in Liz Kim.
Okay.
Moving into the post Heroes versus Villains era, Rob, we're getting into the 20s and closing out the first half of the wish list. Survivor Nicaragua. We have our winner, Fabio. Fourth place finisher, Holly Hoffman. And we have one of our quitters, but arguably one of the stars of the season in Nayanka Mixon. One of our, I think the only returnees so far from Nicaragua in Brenda Lowe. And Mr. Farty himself, Marty Piombo.
Okay.
And then last up for the first half of the ballot here from Redemption Island, here's your Boston Rob. Everybody, we threw him on here because, otherwise it's Andrea Belke and Stephanie Valencia.
Yeah. I just as a note on the ballot, so Rob is going to be at Redemption. Is it too confusing to not just have him in Marquee, even though he got voted in the process?
We're throwing him up there because we'll talk about a couple of other people that were added in there, not from their original
I just don't want people
season.
to be confused.
No, I mean, to be honest, I have a feeling that people are just going to control F Rob anyway, and after you, they'll just be like, okay, Rob Mariano. That's honestly, in my opinion, how people should navigate the ballot is like, it's going to be a little unwieldy, so just control F the people you want to vote for.
Great.
Easiest thing to do.
Okay, all right. Now let's get to the task at hand.
Yes, so we started with South Pacific, and what I'm going to do is, instead of saving the wild cards for the end, just to make things more efficient, Rob, I put out the petition on social media, on Twitter, on Reddit, on a little bit on Discord, and certainly the YouTube comments came in throughout these podcasts as to people we may have missed the first time around. And so we're going to add these people in via wildcard, and I'm going to do it season by season. So like, I'll go through South Pacific and I'll say, okay, these people are added via wildcard.
Great.
What I will say again is thank you to everyone who responded to that. We only ended up going with those that I would say multiple people and a good amount of people had vocalized their support for. I know that pretty much every Survivor player out there has a fan in them, but we wanted to go for those that probably had the most, like, by popular demand, sort of swarming around them. And I will also say, not to necessarily ballot shame too much, but it is a little bit of like a lesson in parenting, Rob, where sometimes I'll be out shopping with my lovely son, Asher, and he'll be like, oh, can we get that cookie? And I'm like, are you really going to eat this $7 cookie when we get home? He says, oh, yeah, I absolutely am. And then I buy the cookie and he takes one bite of it and says, no, I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, they never eat it. Yeah.
So listen, there has been very lovingly vocal support for some of these people to put on as wildcards. And not to say that you need to vote for them, but, it's a little bit of put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Okay. And that's why, like, I've been, pretty vocal about, like, okay, look, if you people want this person, fine, put them on. But we're heading into round one of the voting, which is going to be the primaries. And Mike on the podcast with the podcasters has taken it down from the 700 some odd Survivor alumni. We're getting it down to this list. This is primary season. And now we're going to go in round one. Okay, here's all the names that there are people that would like to see them come back. We're getting it down to 50. And then that's our real vote of that 50 is going to be a cast of 20.
All right. Well, let's start adding some new names to the ballot, shall we? Survivor South Pacific, I talked about with Grace Leader. We added our winner and Winners at War standout in Sophie Clark, Shady, whatever you want to call her. We have a person that she finished alongside of who did not drop his stack in Albert.
So shiny.
Yes, very shiny. And we have a Redemption Island standout in Christine Shields Markowski. And listen, we talk about the clamoring for people that were left off the short list here. We heard you loud and clear, Stacey Powell fans. Blam! She is a wild card.
Blam. Okay. Love Stacey Powell. I don't know if Jeff even knows who Stacey Powell is, if you asked him, but would love to see it.
Also added alongside this, and I actually asked this on the podcast alongside Grace, I saw a healthy amount of actually acclaim across various pockets of social media to have Jim Rice back on as well, former podcast standout. So he will also be on as a wild card.
Okay. Yeah. Hope Jim Rice is doing great wherever he is.
I think he's, well, especially with certain things becoming legal in the past few years. I think he's rolling it.
He was ahead of the curve. Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Survivor One World, which I talked about with Amon Adwin. Listen, a little bit slimmer pickings, I would say, than other seasons. But of course,
You're saying that the list is top heavy, Mike?
Well, speaking of which, Kat Ederson is on the list. We added, I would say, an underrated Rob Cesternino impression back in the day of our merge boot, Jonas Otsuji, and Bill Posley, who we all thought, I think, got done a little raw by the events of Survivor One World.
Yep. Okay.
All right, moving on here to Survivor Philippines. We have, of course, our golden boy, Malcolm Freeberg. We have someone that I think some people may have forgotten about, but when I talked about it with Jake O'Kane, was pretty underrated in the form of Pete Yurkowski. We have our merge boot and someone who Pete actually helped turn Abby against in RC. And as one of the ultimate wild cards, though he was not a wild card, he was put on the list proper. First boot, Zane Knight.
Okay. All right. Now, did Abby say no? Did she decline?
Abby has, even as recent as a few months ago, said, like, I'm never playing Survivor again.
Okay.
So I take people for their word, you know?
Sounds good.
But yeah, I would say, unfortunately, one of the snubs there by choice. Survivor Karamoan. If we talk about the pickets being slim, we had to choose between the fans tribe on Karamoan. I was joined by, of course, the one Omer Zahir. We put on Reynold and we put on Laura.
Finally.
Exactly. The justice for Laura Alexander. But there were two people that were added on by popular demand as wild cards. Of course, open up the dog bars people. Eddie Fox. People wanted on. And there was a clamoring for Sherry Beetham.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Julie Landauer.
No, I think she's got other cars to drive. Unfortunately, no tracks being built on the beach.
I saw her say on Twitter that, like, listen, like, I'll be good now.
I mean, listen, you know, times will change. Maybe it's like sprinkles inside the vanilla ice cream. I love vanilla ice cream, by the way. But yeah, we're going to add Eddie and Sherry, who were the top two finishers in the fans, to add to the ballot here.
Okay.
Moving on to Survivor Blood versus Water. Again, we're only pulling from the loved ones tribe. We have one of the biggest standouts from the season, voted out her own mom in Sierra Easton. We have our first Big Brother crossover in Hayden Moss. We have a standout in the pre-merge, turned a runner-up in Brad Culpepper, and John Cody.
Okay. Very fun.
Let's go into, of course, Survivor Cagayan. We have two-time winner, one of the biggest characters in the show, Tony Vlachos. We have third place finisher, Cass McQueen Grace. Her rival to the bitter end in the form of Trish, and the purple pants badass, Bryce Isaiah.
Okay. All right. That's a great list for sure.
And we got one more. I pretty much said it was going to happen because we only had 4 spots, but don't dump out the rice, people. We're putting Jatia on the list as well.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that would be great. I mean, Survivor Cagayan, you could probably go 10 deep on bringing people back from that. And they kind of have. But great list.
All right. Moving on to our second Blood versus Water season in San Juan del Sur. We have our winner and the highest average place survivor in history, I believe, technically speaking, in Natalie Anderson. We have the guy who she ends up undoing in the game in John Mish. We have the pair of boyfriends at the time in Reed and Josh. And Kelly Wentworth, we did add on during Edge of Extinction just because we only had 4 slots at the time. But of course, she's brought in as this is her original season, if not her most unmemorable one. And again, a huge clamoring for this other person added on by popular demand. How could we have John on without Jacqueline by his side?
Okay, I'm curious. Now, did Jeremy not? Is he coming later?
Jeremy does not want to come back.
What?
Jeremy has said as recent as this year that he does not want to come back and play Survivor again.
Okay.
Again, I take them for their word. You know, I don't want to extrapolate too much as to what decisions they would make. I know that's some people vary in terms of how much they want to do that. But for now, I'm taking what I'm given.
Okay.
All right. Let's move into...
Gotta ask him about that.
Let's move... No, maybe I have a chance to ask him that.
What about Val? Val doesn't want to come back?
Val does want to come back, but I think she was, second boot on sort of season 29 might be a little tough. I don't know how much there is there. I said to people, okay? I got my catchphrase out of the way. Let's go into the 30s, starting with the Dirty 30 here, though we found 4 rather clean individuals comparatively. We have our winner, Mike Holloway. We have the second place finisher, who some people felt was robbed to get a second chance almost immediately in Mama C. We have Shireen, who does get a chance to be on Survivor Second Chances. And we have a standout from a character perspective in Jen Brown.
Okay.
All right, let's move. Of course, we skip over Survivor Cambodia. As we move into Survivor Wrong here, we have, of course, our winner and two-time finalist in the form of Michelle Fitzgerald, recently appearing on The Challenge Season 40, which is premiering this Wednesday. We have two-time player Ty Trang. We have one of the biggest demands to come back for a one-time player in Sydney Gillian, and someone who I think people thought was very underrated, especially at the age she played at, in Julia Sokolowski.
Okay.
Now,
has Sydney said that she would play again?
Sydney has actually come around a bit in recent years to say basically like, when I retire, I am more than happy to come back. And listen, I don't know what the
she's in, and I'm not sure if I'm getting is it bodybuilding?
She is a bodybuilder. She's a professional bodybuilder,
okay.
And so suffice it to say, the nutrition she lost out there.
Tell her it's only 26 days now.
That's exactly what I was saying. Though I think, unfortunately, the less food, like Kirsten and I were talking about how she has to pretty much like negotiate for macros instead of rice if she wants to, keep up the physical regimen. Look, the big person that is missing from this list, and one of the most controversial snubs, we're rectifying it. Aubrey Bracco is on the ballot here. We are not getting run down in the middle of the road. She's being added.
Okay. I mean, we talked to her on Talking with T-Bird. Again, I think that she's not like clamoring to do it, but I think that she would do it. The thing is, it's like, I could tell you, like, as an alumni, it's like every time I think I'm out, they keep pulling me back in. Like, I don't think that any of us really want it. Like, there's some people that have had like traumatic experiences, like for whatever reason, it's like, no, never again. But I think a lot of people are like, I guess so.
Yeah, but if I make that assumption, then what are we doing here? Then we should just...
No, I know. I'm just telling you, like, that I think that Aubrey, like, that's how she feels about it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's another reason why I think Kirsten in particular wanted to leave her off, is I think of these 4 prospective 5 people, she was probably the least gung-ho about actually wanting to come back, considering especially how things kind of fell out on Edge of Extinction.
Yeah. And I could just tell you that also as an alumni, it's hard to have like one foot in and one foot out, because when you are going to go and do it, you have to be all in. So it is like for your own like mental health, like it is not necessarily like a healthy headspace to be in of like, I am all in returning. And you have to like really, it's all you think about when you are going into that. And so as somebody who has been like a multiple season player, like an Aubrey, like, the only way to sort of like keep your sanity is to like say like, like don't lose my number. But
well, I do have one more wild card to add in from Wrong, and we talked about her a bit as someone to prospectively put on, and received a good amount of support from the social media as well. I think our mental giant, Alicia Holden, should get a wild card.
Oh, you got to. I mean, obviously.
There we go. Dripping with sincerity. That's how we love you, Rob Cesternino.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to Millennials versus Gen X.
Couldn't have the ballot without her.
So we have our fallen angel in the form of David Wright. We have 2 challenge standouts in the form of Jay Starrett and Michaela Bradshaw.
Okay.
And the third person rocked out in Survivor history turned Survivor podcaster in the form of Jessica Lewis. All right, let's move into... Now, this is when things start getting even more unwieldy, Rob, because we're getting into the era where, besides winners, nobody has come back. And so we decided to expand the ballot, expand the courts from 4 people on the list to 5. And we're still going to add some wild cards in here. Triple H, Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers. We have our runner-up, Chrissy Hoffbeck. Our fallen angel, first one ever eliminated via forced fire making at the Final Four in Devin Pinto. Knock knock, it's Dr. Mike, somebody who I think a lot of people felt robbed in the moment and was one of the stars of the season at the time in Lauren Rimmer, and pre-merge queen in Allie Elliott.
Okay. Very fun. I mean, would Lauren Rimmer, I feel like in the moment, and Devin too, there was like a lot of momentum for them to play again, and it just never came together.
Right. So that's what the purpose of these podcasts were as well. Is it was very fun to explore, like, in the moment, how popular were these people now? And like, is it worth re-exploring that? we do have one more name to add from this because I
Yes?
heard it loud and clear. Chappelle, this one's not for you only, but definitely for you. I questioned it, but listen, she's a challenge champion, and let's see if we can add a Survivor champion on top of that. I'm going to add Desi Williams as a wild
Yeah,
card.
I think she would play.
I think she would play. My concern was that, and you saw this in the Challenge USA too, that she did have some problems with the most like deceitful parts of the game. But
Yeah.
for what it's worth, she absolutely commanded the Challenge USA season 2.
Yeah, I think great pick.
All right, moving on.
That one makes sense.
To a little bit of shade there to Ghost Island, which I did with aforementioned wishlist ballot member Bryce Isaiah. So we talk about one of the most dominant pairs in Survivor history and the only top 2 so far to tie the final vote in Wendell and Dominic. We have the person that arguably brought the Sia money back to Survivor after Ty got it and made it a mainstay for a little while in the form of Donathan. We have a frequent RHAP guest and podcaster as well. Check out Road to Reality in Kellen Bechtold. And we have, of course, the beneficiary himself, the noble one, Chris Noble.
Okay.
And added as a wild card, this was certainly something that Bryce and I talked about, whether or not there were other people that maybe have taken his spot in terms of archetype. But there was enough talk about it after the podcast. We're going to throw a young lad on there. Let's put Michael Yerger on as a wild card.
Okay.
What do you think, Rob? Do you think any appetite for the Yerger in 2024?
I don't know if he wants to do it, but I feel like that at the time, he certainly seemed like a lock to return.
All right. Well, let's take a swing here as we move into, like Sammy Sosa, as we move into one of the most acclaimed seasons of all time.
Could get a Zaddy calendar appearance out of it.
I'm pretty sure he already has multiple times over. Let's talk about Survivor. David versus Goliath. A lot of people to choose from here. So we have 2 of our top 3 in the form of Mike White and Angelina Keeley. We have 3 fan favorite Davids in Davey Rickenbacker, Christian Hubicki, and Gabby Pascuzzi. Natalie Cole was not initially included on, but of course, Brian Scally won a Money in the Bank pass for the ballot, incoming in second place in the RHAP pressure cooker. And as a result, decided to add Natalie Cole back on, sprinkle some Natalie Napalm on. And there's one more wild card. And Rob, to be candid, I was a little shocked about this.
Okay.
Triple H was 2 seasons ago, but there's been a good amount of fervor to put a certain wrestling figure on
the Mayor of Slamtown?
John Hennigan, we're adding as a wild card here.
It is a great cast.
It's a really great cast. This is another 10 deep that
Democracy.
We can go. Yeah, but right now we're going several. So yeah, we're going to add John Hennigan on as well, the George Bushy of Tushy, and let's see how he'll do on the ballot compared to W proper.
We're gonna do it.
All right, let's move on to Survivor Edge of Extinction. So this was a bit of an interesting one because we kind of had leftovers to put on in the form of Kelly and David, not David E. Kelly. And so the newbies that we put on were, of course, our runner-up, and some would feel maybe one of the rightful winners of the season in Gavin. Talk about breaking news, Rick Devens. We have one of the strategic standouts in Victoria Beaumont, and one of the most legendary first boots that is...
Dude.
A long tail in the game, especially in Rob's soundboard and impression book in the form of Reem Daly.
It's fine. You know what, dude? It's fine.
Well, you know what wasn't fine? Maybe some people's reactions to the quartet that was put on, because there are people that the fans want on. Let me start in going from the top down here. And we left him off, I guess, much like the person that he won alongside on the Challenge USA too. But there was a lot of acclaim to put Chris Underwood on the ballot. Someone who ends up declining winners at war. Could be interesting to see back for 50.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. Put him on the ballot for sure. Especially, if these other people that are sort of like made their bones on the challenge a little bit. So would love to see him come back.
Someone that...
let's see him on the ballot.
On the ballot, at least. People argue probably the biggest snub we had so far in the back half. Matt Ligori was a big stumper for Gavin, and unfortunately, it came at the expense of losing the lovely Lauren O'Connell. But she's back, baby. We heard you loud and clear, people. Lauren O'Connell on the ballot as a wild card.
Okay.
And last but certainly not least, school is not necessarily back in session, but let's put Ron Clark on as a wild card as well.
Yep. They would be lucky to have Ron Clark play again.
I was thinking, is Ron Clark the biggest celebrity to play until John Lovett in Survivor 40 Several?
Has Ron Clark been the biggest celebrity to play? It's hard with some of these athletes. So are you counting Mike White?
Mike White played before Ron.
Okay, so since Ron, you know what? Just off the top of my head, I'd have to give that some thought.
Okay, so you said off the top of my head, TBD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry about that.
Let's move into Survivor Island of the Idols. So we pulled from this basically 4 through 7 in the form of Lauren Ashley Beck, Janet Carbon, Elaine Stott, and Karishma Patel, who we recently had actually on TV for real this past week. And of course, podcast standout Jamal. And one more wild card here. We don't have to search too much for him. A lot of people wanted Detective Dean Kowalski on the ballot.
What's a lot of people, Mike?
A good amount. More than several wanted Detective Dean on the ballot.
Okay. Sure. Go for it. Go
All
crazy.
Right. All right. Now we move into the new era. And here's where things got even more interesting, Rob, because again, I would say the casting is the strongest part of the new era. And so picking only 5 people from it was an even tougher thing to do than usual. And so suffice it to say, there's going to be a lot of new era representation here on the ballot.
Makes sense.
Let's go to season 41. We have our third place finisher that I think some were surprised to see finish in third, Xander Hastings.
Yep.
We have what ends up becoming his number 1 ally by...
I still say I think Xander would be like a sneaky good returnee.
I think so as well. Maybe not sneaky returning. That's Kelly Wentworth.
I think he's been kind of forgotten. I think that production liked him. I think that the fans liked him. That he's. I think that he's somebody that I think a lot of people sleep on in terms of he's just like a dumb surfer guy. Even after the season is over, he's a pretty smart guy.
Not to mention he's pretty svelte nowadays as well.
Yeah, and so a sneaky good athlete. So.
Well, we have the person that he ends up sharing that really tender moment with before he's voted out in Ricard. Of course, one of the most complicated dynamics of the new era. We have Shan alongside Ricard. We have a co-host of The Pride Has Spoken, Evie Jagoda. And this is Nasir on the ballot.
This is Nasir.
One additional wild card here. And honestly, it was between Nasir and this person for the last spot. So it only makes sense that we'll add them on. Baruch Hashem, Tiffany Seeley on the ballot.
Okay, sure.
And listen, I'm getting some calls for Danny McRae. Danny has said he never wants to come back.
Okay.
He said as recently as last year, truly the hourglass twist broke him. He does not want to come back and play Survivor.
When they broke the hourglass, they broke Danny too.
Honestly, yeah. Pretty much 1-for-1 series of events there. Let's move on to season 42, a very well-acclaimed season of the new era, as well as the cast reflecting it. We have our winner, of course, in Mary Ann. We have Mike Turner, the runner-up finisher. We have one of the most physical presences in Survivor in some time in Jonathan Young, strategic standout and chaos king Omer Zahir. And we ended up putting Tori on as well, who had a little bit of an underdog story throughout the first half of the game.
Okay.
And we've got some more names to add.
Okay, what do you got?
So we've got, to start off, someone who ends up finishing in 5th here to, I think, close out the entirety of the top 6, or actually besides Romeo, the top 6 on this ballot. Lindsay Delashovich, our 5th place finisher, who I think, much like Xander, would actually be really good. I thought she had a very, solid game in 42.
She didn't get a lot in the pre-merge for whatever reason. She was a little purple in the pre-merge, but she had a really great run in the second half. She's a very fun person, so sure.
Let's say hi to Hi. Hi was somebody that Scally and I were kind of between him and Tori, and the fans have spoken, so we'll throw Hi on.
A lot of potential for Hi.
And then, as much as I said, I don't know what the chances are that pre-mergers from the new era get on the ballot. That doesn't mean that the fans don't want to see them on the ballot. There are 2. The people that came out for Jenny Kim to be on incredibly admirable. Jenny was someone that was screwed over by a series of unfortunate events, and so people want to see her on the ballot, and so she is as a wild card.
Okay.
And I've seen this name being stated pretty much nonstop in the chat for the past minute, so it only makes sense. We got to have this guy come on, finish higher than what? 8th place and say, beat you, Corey. Zach Wernberger.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're waiting for me to say a bad word about Zach Wurtenberger, keep waiting. It's not going to happen.
All right, moving on to Survivor 43. This is another one we went 2 through 6 on. So we have our runner-up in Cassidy Clark, our zero-vote finalist in Owen Knight, the big strategic powerhouse of the season in Jessie Lopez, though of course definitely a powerhouse in her own right as well, Carla Cruz Godoy, and someone who I think would be very interesting if he was brought back, especially alongside Jessie, in Cody Ossenmacher.
Yep. Okay. But you got some more, Mike?
I got some more. So the first one, I want to bring up Noelle. I think Noelle was someone that we definitely considered.
Yes, I think that she is a real Survivor 50 sleeper. I think that she's a production favorite, a fan favorite, and I think she's hungry to come back. So yeah, that's a good one.
And last one, this might be controversial, but you know, his association with Survivor is certainly marked with controversy. But I saw a healthy amount of people out there, Rob, who wanted to see Gabler come back.
I mean, put him on the list.
All right.
Let's see if all these Gabler stands are if they're put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, or if they're just gonna lie underneath the surface, and maybe they'll come out in droves before we realize it.
Yeah, and shame for no James Jones.
Yeah, James Jones. But you might be hearing from James Jones sooner rather than later, where he can yell at me.
Yeah.
And also, I heard that there were some Ellie requests. Ellie, I can say from firsthand information, has said that she would not like to play again. So,
okay.
Unfortunately, her life is also fine. Let's move on to Survivor 44, a season full of characters. We have our winner in Jam Jam. We have arguably one of the biggest fan favorites in recent memory, and certainly I think a shoo-in to come back should she want to, and Carolyn, of course, future Traitors contestant. We have like the Tasmanian devil through the jungle, Danny. We have one half of course, in Frankenship in Franny. And we have the guy who climbed the rocks in the form of Matthew.
Okay.
And one more name to add onto this, especially when it came out. You see 2 of the Tika 3 on there, and I think it only makes sense. And again, there was a good amount of opinion about this to put Carson on. I had said that are Carson, Drew, and Charlie competing for the same spot? I don't necessarily know, but put them on the ballot and see where the votes lie.
Yeah, but really, I kind of feel like that the exercise should be like, let's put Carson is certainly a viable returnee. Let's put these people on the ballot, and then to the powers that be, they can get a sense of like, where is like the fan support among the, if they're looking at a board that has what, Drew, Carson, and who?
Drew, Carson, and Charlie.
Drew, Carson, and Charlie, and they want to see like, okay, what do the fans want? This is the great, for us to leave him off the ballot and then they don't have that information.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that I understand people might have consternation for certain people that are put on. Again, everybody has opinions. If you don't want to see someone on 50, don't vote for them. Yeah.
I mean, that's what this exercise is all about, of like letting the people who are going to make this decision know what do the biggest fans of Survivor think.
All right. Well, let's move on to 2 of the biggest seasons, the most recent, someone say the best that the new era has to offer. And as such, it's going to take up a good portion of the ballot here. Survivor 45, we have our winner, Indy Valladares, recent Jeopardy standout and recently mentioned Drew Basile. We have Sapuya was really stumping for Uncle Bruce to come back for a 3rd time. What the hell, guys? It's Kelly Nalbandian, and our first juror, but certainly made an impression in Caleb.
Great.
And we've got quite another number of names to add on here. We get it, people, and I understand. I was stumping for this guy. Baby girl is coming home. You don't need to say whoa in reaction to Jake not showing up here. He is on the ballot.
Put him on the list.
put him on the list. And
An easy one.
Easy one. I'll put Katora on the list as well. There was a lot of acclaim for Katora there. There was a good amount for Austin as well. I think that I argued on the podcast that are Austin and Xander competing for the same slot, as you mentioned. But I think a lot of people showed interest in wanting to see him come back. Besides Charlie, the closest to win in the new era.
I mean, this is an exercise of getting them the data. Put all these people that they've got a board of people. And, a lot of the people we talked about earlier are probably not on that board, but these are the people that they're really going to be deciding between.
And we get another pre-merge standout here. A lot of push for Sabaya to show up as well. So she'll also be added as a wild card.
I'm a Sabaya fan.
And listen,
that was my winner pick.
Yeah, I'm very strong. So it'd be interesting to see her in a second time. I've said it before. I will repeat it again. Emily has said as recently as like a day before I recorded the 45 podcast, she does not want to play again.
Are you sure?
Survivor 46. Let's talk about that season, shall we? So we have, again, a lot of fun people to pick from here. We have our runner-up in Charlie. Of course, I think what people would think is another shoe-in or Q-in to be on 50 in the form of Q.
Debatable.
Our chaos,
put 'em on.
Our chaos queen, Venus.
Cancel Christmas if you don't have Q.
Yes, exactly. We have one of the, biggest people to go out with an idol in her pocket. Stop making the block hot or the ballot hot, Tiffany. And we have someone who I think production would really like to see back in some way, shape, or form in Tevin.
Yeah. I've said I think he's a sleeper to be the third co-host of the On Fire podcast also.
Yeah, we'll see. And maybe that could, listen, we talked about with Dee and Rick, that could even increase his chances of getting on.
Yeah. Any wild cards here, Mike?
Oh, a bunch. Because I don't want people saying that they're pissed that Liz Wilcox... Yes, Liz Wilcox back on here. Let's see if she's allergic to any votes here. And I talked about this as to, whether or not she would make it. She just missed out, but I think especially there's a good chance she and Charlie would get cast together for that potential. I'll put Maria on as well. Taryn and I argued as to whether or not him and Jonathan are two sides of the same coin, but there was a lot of acclaim to put Hunter on the ballot.
Give them the data.
And last, but certainly not least, Jelinski.
Why not?
The legend.
He's got to keep his name out there.
The legend, the monster, Jelinski, showing up here as the final person.
Jelinski is a legend.
Put on the final ballot.
Yes. Okay. All right. Great list, Mike. I had a friend ask me this week a favor. Could Carter Williams get on the ballot?
It would, but I ran into him at a grocery store.
Yes.
He was very rude to me. And so unfortunately, I'm going to have to snub him.
Okay. All right. I had to promised I would ask. Okay?
All right. So let's get into it. So here we go, Rob. I can officially say
what are we getting into?
Well, I can officially say now, the polls are open.
It is time to vote.
It's time to vote, to quote Banu, who unfortunately did not make the list. And so what we are doing is, if you can go to robhasawebsite.com/vote50.
Can we put that up on the screen?
Yes, actually, I will put it up with the full schedule. There we go. robhasawebsite.com/vote50. You can get in there. And let me explain how voting works. So,
don't vote yet. Wait for Mike to finish explaining.
Yes. So in this first round, as Rob mentioned, so we have, I believe it's 227 total people, which is a lot. It's a lot. But
okay.
Listen, we cut it down.
Schedule.
We cut it down from 697. So still we eliminated probably like 60% of Survivor players there. So you can go and vote for your top 10 men and your top 10 women. You get 20 votes per email address. And so you go there, you cast up to 10 votes for men, up to 10 votes for women. You can't be like, oh, I want 16 women and 4 men. It's got to be up to 10 on each side. The top 50 vote getters move on to the second round.
Yeah.
And so you can see
You don't have to vote for 10 from the men and the women. You could vote for 2 and move on to the next page.
Yes. So basically what you do is if you're watching the video version, it's a very simple Google form. You come in, you click up to 10 women. We have it distinguished as to who was a wild card, who wasn't. You do that for the women, do that for the men. Again, 1 ballot per email address. You will get a chance to vote again later on. We'll get into that in a second. But for right now, 1 ballot per email address. The voting is...
I gotta find Susie. Get my vote in.
There you go, Rob. Make sure your voice is heard. So you have from now until Friday, August 16th. So a little less than a week. Friday, August 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific to cast your votes.
Okay.
From this giant group, the top 50 vote getters move on to round 2. So the voting is going to close on August 16th. We're going to take a little bit of the weekend to dissect the data, make sure that we're reminding our P's and Q's, crossing our T's, dotting our I's, insert other letter reference here. August 19th, my birthday, Rob, I will gift the Survivor community.
Happy birthday, Mike.
Thank you. As I will record a video that reveals our top 50 vote getters. And then the final round of voting will commence. That's when it gets down to it.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to get the chance, once again, to vote for your top 10 men and your top 10 women. Think of this basically as like you doing your own Dreamcast, not Sega Dreamcast, based on the ballot that's ahead of you. And so the top 20 finishers will then be revealed later on. So you're going to have the voting open from August 19th to Tuesday, August 27th. So a little bit over than a week to cast your final ballots. And then our final edition of the Summer of Survivor on August 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern will announce the final results and who you voted for the cast of Survivor 50.
Okay. All right. I saw some question in the chat. Is our final list going to, or are we working in the diversity initiative, 50% Black, Indigenous, people of color? We are going to reveal the results of the poll. And then again, this is an exercise of these are the top 20 vote getters. CBS and the powers that be will build a cast that will be in line with the diversity initiative, but that's not on us to then take knock people out of the top 20 vote getters to fit it in with the diversity pledge for what the actual show will be.
And I also have had a lot of questions from people being like, okay, are we casting these ballots based on Second Chance theme or Legends theme or Best to Never Win theme? The answer is yes. Rob, I know you were a big proponent of just making this as open as possible. This is whoever you want to see on Survivor 50. So if you want to create your own theme and cast accordingly, you can. If you don't want to see Boston Rob back for a 6th time, don't vote for Boston Rob.
And again, this is all about getting the data to the people that are going to make the decisions. And if they see a list that looks like, oh, this is a great idea for second chances, I think that is instructional on its own.
Right. So again, I will bring this up on the schedule one more time. So right now, round 1 voting is open. Friday, August 16th, 12 p.m., round 1 voting closes. Monday, August 19th, I will reveal the top 50 and the final round of voting will open. August 27th, Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, round 2 of voting will close, and it will all be announced at 6 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, August 28th. robhasawebsite.com/vote50. That's where you can go for round 1 and eventually round 2 as well. We have done the work. We've made the podcast. We put 227 names on the ballot. It's your turn.
It's your turn. Okay. robhasawebsite.com/vote50. All right. The people are waiting for their live feed update. Taryn is standing by to get you all of your Saturday live feed updates. So be sure to make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss when the results come online. Go to robhasawebsite.com/subscribe. Of course, on YouTube, hit that subscribe button as well. All right. Mike, great job. I have to commend you once again for all your incredible work to get us to this point. And now the decisions in your hands, people of the planet Earth and beyond. robhasawebsite.com/vote50.
All right. Thank you all so much, not only for your support all this series round, but for tuning into this podcast. Rob, thank you as well for your support from the beginning of this idea as we emerge in the next phase of this. As the polls are open, people get to voting. We'll be back on August 19th to reveal the top 50 vote getters. But until then, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.